When I first started practicing, it was in Northern Virginia, and it's very common that former military service members work for the federal government, so I have a lot of experience from there, and I've continued to do that here at Smith Strong. I have represented both active duty military members, former military members, all the way from privates up to colonels, and I've represented many spouses of active or former military members. Well, there's a few things we need to look at, a few key data points. We need to look at when the parties were married, when the service member joined the military, and we need to look at when the service member exited the military. We need to know those three because one of the most important things we need to know is for what period of time was the service member both married to the person and an active duty service member, because that is the key thing that impacts many potential benefits the spouse may have post-divorce. The amount of time that a service member is active duty or in the military and married to that spouse impacts how benefits can be paid, or potentially things like TRICARE for life if there's an extremely long-term marriage and the service member was on active duty or in the military that entire time. The big one that people most often come to me asking about is what we would call a military pension. So right after a service member has been in the military for 20 plus years, they can retire and receive a pension. That is the one that we deal with the most. There is no set minimum required amount of time a spouse has to be married to an active duty or military member to get their percentage of this pay. If they are married more than 10 years, however, the Department of Finance and Accounting with the military DFAS can pay it directly to the spouse, but if it's less than 10 years, they can still get payments. It just has to come from the spouse. The other one that can potentially be affected by the amount of time someone is married is for health insurance. A lot of people call that TRICARE for life. In order to have TRICARE for life, you have to be what we call a 20-20-20 individual. That is a person that is in a marriage of at least 20 years. The service member was in the military for at least 20 years, and the overlap of the marriage and the military member's service was at least 20 years. And if you meet all of those three criteria, then the spouse can get what is colloquially called TRICARE for life, where they receive medical insurance, dental insurance. They can continue to receive those post-divorce as if they were still married to the service member. The DFAS will not directly allot that payment to the former spouse, but courts will order it, and it will just be paid directly from the service member or former service member to the former spouse. Former spouses that don't quite meet the 20-20-20 rule, there is a rule related to 15 years where the former spouse can have a short term of health insurance, but that's very specific to each person's case, and so we'd have to look at exactly that, and that is not for life, it's just for a shorter period of time, but that's something in a consultation or something we can talk about in more detail with clients. Any documents about whether the former military member receives VA pay would be incredibly useful. Because VA pay is treated very differently than military pension pay in divorces. Pursuant to federal law, a court cannot divide VA pay. So for example, if a military member is receiving $3,000 per month in military pay total, but half of that, so $1,500 per month, is VA pay, only that other $1,500 is actually divisible in a military pay, retirement pay order, and that's by federal law. So the former spouse can only get their percentage of that $1,500. Now that doesn't mean that that income doesn't get accounted for elsewhere, such as for child support or spousal support, but just for purposes of dividing military pay, any VA pay is not divisible. So it's incredibly important that we know that as soon as possible, because that greatly affects how we may approach spousal support especially, and obviously child support we need to know all of the income, but spousal support most importantly because that's more income for the former military member. For the military members, whether you're getting divorced or not, probably the best thing you can do is to continue to document any injuries or anything that happens to you while you are on active duty. Whether you're getting divorced or not, that's important for your VA pay because that determines what percentage you are considered disabled. And there's tax implications, positive ones for service members that receive VA pay, and that can also help them in a divorce if more of their military retirement pension is VA pay. It's not subject to direct distribution to the former spouse.